In 2008, Lionel Oliver published plans for his simple waste oil burner on his website, backyardmetalcasting.com. Soon, members of the forums that evolved off his website, alloyavenue.com, began copying his design and having great success with it. Whether they built it exactly the same as Lionel's original design, or whether they went for something a little more elaborate. Later that same year, Lionel developed a smaller version of the drip injection type waste oil burner. He called it the Hot Shot. Basic principle is the same. Propane dumps into the burner tube and gets blown into the furnace using forced air to preheat the furnace. Once the furnace heats up, you open the valve for the oil, which then drips in through a tube at the end of the burner tube, a thinner tube, and gets blown into the hot furnace where the oil vaporizes and burns. At the same time Lionel was developing the Hot Shot, another member of the Alloy Avenue forums also developed a smaller version based on the Brute. This one came to be known as the Moya burner. Basically the same thing as a Hot Shot, except that instead of the air coming in through the back end of it, it comes in through a T on the side. This is the design I wound up building. I believe it was back in 2014 or 15, and I've been using it ever since. It never really worked super great in preheat mode in the big furnace. It always kind of sputtered a little, and it was never as stable as I would have liked it to be, but it was the only burner I'd ever used and the only furnace I'd ever used that needed a burner, so I just went with it. It was good enough to get me going onto the oil, so fine. Then I built my new furnace. Turns out propane is so much easier to work on my Moya burner in the smaller furnace. So that's why I decided to build a bigger version of the Moya burner, which you'd think it's just a Brute, but I'm taking Moya's approach and bringing the air in through a T on the side. Thrift store lamp. Perfect oil tube for my new burner. Just want to keep it just a little bit out of harm's way here. Alright, so this spot here I'm going to mark will be about approximately matched up with there. It'll stick out that much farther about from the end of the tube. This piece of foam is just to hold the tube centered in the big tube. The plug in the end is going to be lost foam cast. It should burn through the holes I drilled, and lost hot glue cast these little nubs too, just to help keep it in place if it wants to shrink. I got this big fat non-tapered sprue. Lost foam is a whole different animal from sand casting. If this sprue was going to be empty, yeah, it would create a whole lot of turbulence just splashing down into it. But it actually takes the foam a little bit of time to vaporize away in front of the molten metal. It does slow it down. Anyway, it's going to work. I'm going to cast it with this tube in place through it. I'm just going to be able to screw on a fitting to the end of that, and then I'll have my drip tube coming out the end. It's going to work. about there. Hopefully the sand inside the tube will help to keep the inside tube stable. How is the sun? Yeah, this will help settle the sand into place too, just jiggling this a bit. Lose that. I'm gonna have to watch that. Alright, that's in there nice and tight now. Okay, so it's nicely centered, sticking out just the right amount. So now into the bucket we go. Now I got to be careful that sand gets filled in all the way up into here because I don't want this whole thing covered in aluminum. So I'm going to make sure that I squish that down in there real good. Push sand in as much as I have to. Bugs. Alright. Mosquito, gotcha. Alright. There we go. Perfect. Whoops. It's alright. A little bit of sand on top of the styrofoam sprue. Not the best, but it's alright. Alright. That's all there is to it. I might try and push that off a little better. But that's a mold, that's going to work. Alright. Now as long as I remember to pour in here and not here, we're good to go. Oh, and once I get this burner made, I am going to get back to doing some sand casting. So bear with me through this lost foam stuff. But for a one-off casting of this nature, this is just much easier to do it this way. So there you have it. Okay, puppies, you shouldn't have been so naughty. Oh, look how cute. You see his little tails poking out. A few other bits here to put in once that's all melted down, and there's a bit more room. Because of lost foam, you always want to have a little extra in your crucible, and as well as always wanting to pour a little bit hotter than you would if it was an empty cavity sand mold. Looks like we got a good pour. It took lots of metal, so I'm convinced it worked out. Just that one ingot left over in the crucible. That looks like it's still centered. So we're just going to wait, I don't know, 15 minutes, half an hour, and we'll come back and shake this thing out to see what we see. Hot. There's the end. Came out perfect. Even the little rivets, quote unquote, came through pretty good. So I've just bandsawed the gate off. Came off really easy, nice and clean. It's perfect, just like I thought. There's I just literally just brushed the sand off with my fingers and sawed off that sprue. I don't know if they're rivets, but the hot glue, just to double make sure that this plug doesn't fall out. It burned out. It came through just about like they looked in the hot glue. Ugly, but they're there. This thing is solid. Comes up to about here. Well, I ground down those cast in place rivets. I'll hold it in place. It's not going anywhere anyway. It's sealed in there good. Behold, welding. Beautiful welding. Well, I did a bit of grinding. It's still not pretty, but it looks better. All you really need is a 1/4 to 1/8 reducer. Then you can fit a quick connect onto the end of this lamp tube. And now it's just ready to plug straight into my existing oil line for my other burner. This is just going to drill in here and just dump propane straight into the tube to get blown in by the blower air and burn inside the furnace. The plumbing for the propane in is literally just a 1/4-inch ball valve on a quick connect, and any way you want to get it plugged into the burner. Although I do recommend you use a 90 somewhere, because if you have it stick it straight up from the burner, it's just going to poke you in the eye one day. See that pipe coming in down at the bottom there? That is a 1/8 inch close nipple. Hey, I don't make up the names for these people. I just kind of drilled a hole. It's too this stuff is too thin to be able to tap anything into, any threads. So I just drilled a hole that I could kind of wedge this into, and welded it in place more or less. Propane goes off. Propane goes on. Propane goes off. This is still too long. I'm gonna have to cut it off. I'm gonna have to stick it in the furnace and see how far in it goes when this is stuck all the way into the tuyere, to know where to cut it exactly. Well, a big part of the reason I built this burner is because it fit my leaf blower so nice. Let's see if this thing can control my leaf blower as well as it does my shop vac. Blower still. Alright. Might be able to run that on propane. Propane doesn't need much air. The low pressure as I run it. This might just do. Oh, I can't turn it up. Oh, getting jumpy. In between speeds. It's this spot here that's giving me trouble. Alright. Possibly problematic. So this is how I imagine this being set up when I use it, more or less. This tube ends right here. Let me show you. This just goes in there. You can see it down there, resting on the castable refractory. Standard Moya burner. I've got this another piece of this same piece here bolted on here to hold this centered and at the right length. But it just hooks in there. It might even be a little too far forward, to be honest. Pull it back a bit, keep it out of harm's way. The new burner does not have this, so this tube is going to be sticking out without a tube around it, other than the inside of this one, which is this piece. I'm gonna have to cut that off right around here somewhere to keep it safe, so it won't melt. And I'm gonna have to keep an eye on it. Hopefully I won't have any problem with the propane wanting to burn back inside the tube. So yeah, the giant size Moya burner. We'll see if I don't blow myself up. Got this adapter to fit my shop vac because the leaf blower I wanted to stick in here that just fits easily right in this section is a little harder to control than I hoped. Maybe I'll work on that later, but for now I can keep using this with my shop vac. So also I picked this up. This is going to be my anvil, so I guess I'm going to have to learn how to do some blacksmithing. Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Rokashan from Paul's Discord server, who was kind enough to meet up with me in a parking lot and hand this thing over to me. So he recently bought himself a nice real anvil, so I guess he wanted to, help a guy out. So really appreciate that, and I'll have to make sure I put it to good use. This gives me some ideas for how I'm going to test this, because while it is a waste oil burner, it's also a propane burner, and the reason I built it was because I was hoping that it would be a better propane burner in my big furnace than my old smaller burner is. I have no doubt that it'll work well as an oil burner as long as the propane side of it works for preheating the furnace. So maybe I'll fire up the big furnace and see how well it works as a forge, and you guys can watch me try and hammer on some hot stuff with no idea what I'm doing. I'd say that's a decided improvement. Definite thing. Definitely getting flatter. Pretty cool. Houston, we have a problem. Alright, time to shut it down. Yeah, it's not supposed to be burning inside the tube like that. I'll have to do something. Back to the drawing board. So I'll have to make some modifications for it. Keep that burner from burning inside the tube and burning itself up. Well, I got so busy playing with my new anvil, I didn't really keep that close of an eye on or get any real good footage of that burner test run, which was kind of the whole point of doing it. So I'll have to do it again, but as you can see, the flame was burning inside the burner tube, which isn't good. It's supposed to start at the front of the burner tube, not inside it. I want the fire inside my furnace, not destroying my burner. So I have one of two possible strategies. One, I only noticed that happening after I tried to turn it down from when I initially started it up, and it seemed to be working well. So maybe if I hadn't tried to turn it down, there'd be enough blower air to keep the flame pushed out into the furnace. That would be plan A. That'd be the smart thing to try first. So naturally I went ahead and built plan B, which was to make a little reducer that fits inside here that hopefully will encourage the flame to hold the flame right just in front of itself. because that was more fun than just turning up the blower. I got to use my bandsaw and do some welding and hammer on things. So that's my tip. Always go with plan B. It's easily removable. I just stuffed it in there. Look how good I eyeballed it. It's perfect. Comes right just past the end of the drip tube. It may even get a bit of Venturi effect and help suck the oil through there. You never know. That's not the way it's supposed to work, but if it does, I don't mind. Let's see how far in that peaks. It's actually pretty good. Seems like it's still burning inside and going around the toaster thing I made. Those two air pieces glowing. The nozzle I made is not. But I think if I plug up those gaps, should work fine. I know HT1 uses a Moya burner just as a propane burner, so I think sized up version, as long as it's, if you size it up this much, you're going to need that reducer, or maybe you know something better than I do. I'm sure you do, but it does work. I look forward to testing it out with oil at some point and casting something, but not today. I don't have time and I don't have anything to actually cast right now. The burner works.
I still know. Jesus! Oh God! Flamethrower. Yeah. Jesus. Dad, you're insane.